Guys, Key Trades Day is March 3rd, and today we're going to be going over my perfect setup. And I know I've been slacking. The wins haven't been stopping. We've been catching some winning weeks. The market's been a bit tougher, but we've been adapting decently. But we're back and we're going to be consistent with the YouTube. But let's get right into it. Again, my plan was pretty spot on today. I called for a bullish market off the open. I wanted to see deliveries of these targets. We ended up getting our 4-hour target. I said, let's see how the markets act. If we get a rejection in a shift in structure, I look for these targets. And that is exactly what happened. I said 21.034 sweeping in the 1 hour could be a nice area for long or a short target, but it ended up just hitting the 1 hour and moon shooting. So let's get right into my structure and my areas of interest that I called for. So 21,118. That's going to lie at this high, which is just the draw back into this 4-hour imbalance. And I called the 1 hour imbalance above being potentially it could draw a bit higher, but we end up respecting cleanly. And then my targets, right, for short, we're going to be 884 equal low and 838 into the 4 hour. So obviously 4-hour fair value gap was going to be a target as well. Coming in on the 1 hour, we had these small equal lows, almost equal lows. So these are my two short targets, and then obviously, end of day targets. And I also had a 1 hour fair value gap fill target here. But my long look, 21,034, was just this 1 hour fair value gap here. And why did I want to see longs off the open? It makes sense on the higher time frames, right? We sold off, and overnight we seen the inverse. We started seeing buyers. So it makes sense for market to a price to this 4 hour before making any sort of move. That's why my main interest I called before the market opened was let's see how we act at that 4 hour fair value gap. And we ended up getting rejection short, which makes sense with the overall market. So with the rejection short, what is my likely target? Equal lows on the 4 hour, reprice to the 4 hour fair value gap. That would make sense on the 4 hour time frame. But coming into my setup, so we know we delivered, and this is what I like here. A very, very perfect rejection route. We tap that. We can see a buy side liquidity sweep of the 4 hour, of the internal highs into the 4 hour, and we left an SMT. Right, this is my perfect model. If I'm looking for a perfect trade, this is it. We swept into the 4 hour, rejection off a higher time frame, leaving an SMT. We can see these overnight internal highs get swept on NQ, and if we go to ES, we can see that the overnight highs failed to sweep off the open, leaving a lower high for ES, higher high for NQ. So now I'm looking for a point of interest, and that point of interest is just my point of entry. It comes on a classic 1 minute fair value gap inversed. We ended up inversing this. It was a bit too far for me to get the close entry, so I waited for retracement, and I got short here. A little bit of drawdown, totally fine. For me, I just placed my stop above. I was looking for a clean respect. I was looking for a scalp look. So on a scalp look, I'm looking for a scale break even at the internal lows. And this is my mistake here. I was not confident. I was not trusting in my plan. Right? My runner target should have been my 882 and my 834 targets. But I ended up finding a way to get out a bit earlier, which is a mistake on my part. And I just looked for these 15-minute fair value gaps that were unfilled for a gap fill on my trade. So in hindsight, yes, I caught a pretty decent quality trade, 46 points and then 80 something points to these targets. But again, if I'm calling my pre-market plan, if we reject short, these are my targets. I should have held runners. I should have trusted it, hit the runners for a obviously much more ridiculous trade. But again, I'm not going to complain about 3 minutes and 80 plus points. And then I called, right, my fault, I missed the point, right? The 103 area could be a nice area for longs. We dipped the 103 off the open and we just shot straight up. I was looking for an inverse entry here to the 4 hour, but it just moonshot. That's totally fine. But then I said, right, I'm looking to see if we get a 5-minute continuation to what? 884 and 834, right? My targets. And we got a 5-minute continuation model that we had a member take. Again, a classic model for me, right? We have the overall bear structure. We know our draw is lower. We end up having a nice fair value gap, a 5-minute here, 5-minute time frame. We drew into that 5-minute fair value gap. Again, I wanted this inverse entry before we ran the low. That's totally fine. I had a member show confidence and just short the 5-minute gap. And that is totally fine because the narrative is lower. The selling pressure is there. It makes sense for that. But you could have caught a nice entry at this 1 minute fair value gap and targeted my targets. But again, that's totally fine. I should have held a plan, but I'm not going to really be upset about that. And that is a pretty much a perfect pre-market plan delivering. As I can see here, full plan banged nicely. And then I gave a nice live trade call out for the members. And it is a 5 minute continuation. Again, I was looking originally, we swept my targets and then we dipped into the 4 hour fair value gap and we found that buying I wanted to see. So 4 hour fair value gap. We delivered my targets and then we started to hold it and find buying. I wanted to first look for a 3 minute inverse fair value gap, but I just could not factor the risk in well, right? My target was going to be discount of the range for the long, and it was a nice 3 minute fair value gap play that ended up playing. Right, I was looking at this respected bearish 3 minute for an inverse long, and in hindsight, it works beautifully. We inverse close, get the retrace entry, and it would have delivered my target fine. My only issue was this, right? We're longing the inverse. My stop would have to minimum be placed below this 1 minute fair value gap because the market could dip the 1 minute fair value gap, as you can see here, and then deliver, right? So it was a bit iffy for me. The risk was just too big in my opinion at over a 40-point risk for my TP only being 40 points. Again, a 1-to-1 is okay, but if I'm incurring a bigger risk, I better see a fat reward. Like my trade having a 30-plus point risk, but I was looking at 84 points. I was looking at over 2-to-1. But this is totally fine. We missed out. And then I said, what? Let's look for a continuation then, which became on a nice inverse 5 minute here, break a structure, and we had a 5 minute fair value gap. Looking for my classic continuation model here. We dipped the 5 minute, found aggressive buying. We got the inverse. Again, the inverse close entry was just too far for me to get in. So I called members for a dip entry. Boom. And this trade had a max run up of 62 points, which most members ended up catching 40. I called for a 57 scale, which is just, it makes no sense, but it's the midpoint of the new week opening gap. So I said it's a good place to get a scale in early. And then I told members to get fully out here. Why? Because this high left an SMT. We ended up sweeping out this high on ES and NQ failed to. So because of the bearish narrative in the market, it makes total sense to just get fully out here, which members did, or members stopped in profit. So about a 40-point gain there. About 40 points. One member caught 39, other member caught 40 points. The rest out was stop in profit. And then it could have offered you a nice SMT short here down to these lows. But there's plenty of other steps to take. But that's just it for the AM. That's what I did on live. That's going to be it for the March 3rd review. Again, we're back on YouTube. We're going to be banging our recaps and being back and consistent. Again, that's totally on me. The market was a bit slower. We were catching wins, but, just wasn't too exciting or motivating for me, in my opinion. But we're back. We're going to stick to it regardless. And that is going to be it for March 3rd. Again, my perfect setup is the SMT 4-hour rejection inverse model. Clear draws lower. Clear downtrend. Everything makes sense. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you want to join the Discord, we'd be happy to have new members. The link is in the bio. Until next time, guys. Peace out.